You've worked with patients and then you see all their psychological disorders and then you find out later that some of them have had eating disorders?
Okay, so let me say again, as I said before, I have a private practice in the center of Tel Aviv, which is actually important because obviously the viewers don't really know. But Tel Aviv is really a city which characterized by young population mostly. It's very open, very liberal. All the young people from all over the country come to live there. So 60% of the population in Tel Aviv are people in the ages of, I would say, 22 to 40, which clearly you're going to find the problems that you are dealing with as psychologists are really, really focusing on this group. So clearly, issues that have to do with the relationship, depression, anxiety, not find your way in life, and clearly eating disorder, I would find them in the clinic. The point is, as I think we mentioned before as we talked, I don't work in a clinic, in a special clinic for eating disorder, but it's quite often that a young woman come to therapy and she said, look, I have a problem with relationship, I'm depressed. And then you do the clinical interview, the intake in the beginning, you start to dig into the background, and here you go. There is a severe history of eating disorder. And I find it, I don't want to say numbers here, but if they say that 5% of young women are suffering from eating disorder, clearly when I'm talking about the segment of population I see, the percentage is much, much higher. I would say about a third of the young women who come to the clinic, there is some kind of history of eating disorder. In some places it's very severe, as from the research that you know, some of the girls have been hospitalized and so on. Some of it's not like that, but it comes and goes. And some of them actually, majority of them still struggling with it today, and they can be very high functioning women. They can be, they go to law school, they have relationship, but it's always there. So they don't come to me as treat the eating disorder, but you cannot ignore it. It's always there. It takes a major place, and it's also have a lot of symbolic meaning in terms of the self-esteem, the way they view the world, the way they view themselves. So I get to deal with it quite often, yeah.
And what kind of psychological effects do you notice of like a trend with these girls that have had eating disorders?
All right, so I guess I have to track back a little bit and basically saying that, as you probably know from the research, eating disorder is a kind of disorder that affects all areas of functioning in life. There is clearly the biological effects that you probably know, losing weight, difficulties with difficulties. It's affecting all areas of the body biologically severely. Psychologically, there is a strong association and actually almost one-to-one correlation between eating disorder and depression, anxiety, low self-esteem, suicide ideation, actual suicidal thoughts and actual suicide attempts, difficulties in maintaining relationships, instability in mood, instability in functioning, it's all there. This is actually why those women are going to come to therapy to see me. They're not going to come because of the eating disorder. They're going to come, my life is a mess. And then you start to talk to them, and the eating disorder is there, and it's directly related, and it plays a role, and this is pretty much how they live their life from years back. And again, depression, anxiety, difficulties in relationship, it's always there in very, very high proportions, much, much more than the regular population. You can't actually separate the eating disorder from the psychological effects and the functioning. It's one unit, it goes together. You can't say this is a biological illness or psychological illness or as we'll talk later, social disease. It's all combined together. So they come to me because of the psychological aspects of it, but clearly then you have to deal with the rest as well.
Right. And do you think you've had an idea of like the cause of the psychological disorders and eating disorders? Do you notice a trend in what you think maybe has been causing all this in all these young people in the church?
Well, what is common in the literature, again, the tendency is to basically talk about three major factors to eating disorder. One is, which is actually a more current trend, people try to look into biological factors, and it's not really going anywhere, but that's the trend today, and people try to look into it. There's a strong genetic link. There is because of the high correlation to depression, people try to look into brain functioning in terms of serotonin and so forth and so on. As you know, you don't know, depression basically characterized by high level of serotonin in the brain. So people maybe thought maybe it's have to do with that. There is leptin, which is an hormone that has to do with balancing weight. So people look for some kind of abnormalities over there. But again, this is only the beginning. In my professional opinion, I don't think this is the direction to go, but it's there. Number two, we get to the psychological reasons. And then it's actually looking to every person individually. Meaning, someone come to me, she talks about eating disorder, and then you start to look into personally what's going on in her life. And this has to do with the relationship with her own mother, her own self-esteem, issue with controls, issue with the body image, issue with the history of depression, abuse, quite common, all kind of abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse. So we're talking about the psychological factors in this particular individual. And then what is really unique to eating disorder, you probably read before, it's probably the only disease, and it is a disease, which is actually a social disease. It's literally the only psychological disorder, psychiatric disorder, which can be clearly characterized and called as a social disease. What I'm trying to say, we talk about depression, when we talk about anxiety, when we talk about obsessive OCD or other kind of psychiatric disorder, you can look at the biology and the psychology. And those are the two main factors. When you talk about eating disorder, it is a social disease. It is a disease that has to do with society that we live in. Clearly, sure, not everyone will have eating disorder. Sure, the personal psychological factors that each girl are crucially important. The house that she grew, her experiences, their internal conflict. But it's too widespread of a phenomena, and the major causes of it are social. And let me explain that. Well, as you know, I mean, this is your age. We live in eating disorder. It's a new phenomenon. Up until, I guess, 50 years ago, 30 years ago, it wasn't existing. It wasn't there. I mean, it literally wasn't there. It's a new disorder. It's a 20 and the 21st century disorder, and it's really have to do with the way we view society. In the world that we live in today, it's very simple. It's very simple. If you are thin, you're successful, you're beautiful, you're successful, everything's going to be okay. If you are so-called overweight, which is clearly skewed and ridiculous because we're not really dealing with overweight, it's a body perception, but if you're overweight, you are doomed. You're not going to make it in your life. You're going to be miserable. And this is what young women get bombarded with since the age of 6. And this is what they see everywhere. And this is the images, and this is the education, and this is the media, and this is the peer pressure, and this is school. And this is what they get to grow up with. And it's very simple. You're going to be thin, everything's going to be fine. And you're going to be thin no matter what. And it doesn't matter. And that's really what lead and cause eating disorder. It's literally, if you would take the old women out there and put them in some island, which the culture is going to be different, it's going to disappear. And up until 100 years ago, actually, overweight women considered to be sexy. So there was no eating disorder. So the thinking that say that if you're going to change society, if you're going to change the images, if you're going to change the way the media and the press basically teaching young women how to their self-image, it's going to change, it's actually the right direction. It is the right direction because it's there. It's literally there. As long as there is society that teach young women that everything has to do with the way they look, and the thinner is the better, it's going to be out there and the numbers are going to increase. So again, now when you actually work in a private practice, you can't change the world, you can't change the universe, you can't educate everybody. So this is not what I do, other people do it. What I do is one person at a time. It's my job to save one woman at a time. When she comes over there, I can't really change the society, but basically you work on self-esteem, you work on body image, you work on try to teach women self-value, you work clearly on internal conflicts that have to do with all the messages that she got when she was a young woman. And then there's also a lot of psychological factors that come into play. Needs for control, severe, there is tremendous anxiety of growing up. it's scary. I mean, if the world is simple when you're a child, and then growing up, it's very scary. Body changes, body image, boys, what you're going to do in life. It's tremendous amount of pressure, and in this vulnerable age, when the message is if you're going to be thin, everything going to work out, and if you come from a society or a house when there is tremendous pressure on you to succeed in all cost, when it's really important the way you look, when you need to control everything, then those two factors, the society and the individual growing up of these young women collide, it can be a disaster. And that's where the eating disorders comes to play.
Right. And what role do you think the modeling industry plays in all of that?
Huge role, no doubt about it, huge role. Again, if you're going to ask people one-to-one, I mean, I guess, teens like you, I'm not necessarily sure that you're all going to say that you want to be a top model, but it's an underlying message. It's there. And basically, if you're going to walk to school today and talk to young girls, I mean, what do you want to do? I want to be famous. I want to be pretty. This is the image, and it's devastating, and the impact is tremendous, and you don't need to do any research. You just have to look at just open the TV for 2 hours, just open, just go over the internet, and this is all you're going to see. Young skinny models, young skinny actors, young skinny singers. This is what goes. This is what sells. This is the formula for success. And the impact clearly on young women, or maybe a little bit shaky in the self-esteem, is clearly devastating. There's no doubt about in my mind that this is really a major cause that fuels this illness. Again, it's not the only thing, but it's really in the front.